feedback problem. Feedback problem.
Welcome, and thank you for joining me for this virtually Maker Faire presentation about do-it-yourself animatronics and then how you can incorporate radio control into your presentation. So I'm going to share with you today how I build my own animatronic characters, what I've learned, some of the processes I've developed over the years in my attempt to emulate some of my inspirations, and those are the designers and the Imagineers at Disneyland. I happen to have grown up here in Southern California, just a short drive from Disneyland, spent many wonderful days at the park, and those characters really captured my imagination. And you know, those characters have continued over the years to get better and better. Until now, they almost appear lifelike. So I know I don't have the budget or the staff to make characters comparable to those, but that doesn't keep me from trying. So with some help from a lot of good friends and fellow makers, I think we've come up with a couple of different processes, a couple of different systems that you can incorporate as you try and design your own animatronic characters. And, you know, these are easily put together. Anybody with a modest experience, if you know which end of the screwdriver to grab and, you know, what a crescent wrench is, you can probably assemble one of these. You'll be able to load a program onto a computer, you know, from your computer. The biggest thing is you need to have a little bit of desire, because they can be a bit overwhelming at times. So a little bit about myself, just really quickly. My practical experience when it comes to animatronics and robotics comes from my love of Halloween. I started out decorating my house just like most other people, going and buying some crappy, cheesy decorations from the party store. And I quickly outgrew them and decided I wanted to start building my own props, and started searching the internet to see what was out there, and decided that I really enjoyed making moving props instead of just static props. So that has kind of evolved as I've gotten into this more and more. I was very fortunate as my display grew, my skills grew. I started to share, as I hope you guys share your projects on YouTube, and was discovered by one of the editors at Nuts and Bolts magazine. And he approached me and asked if I'd be willing to do a couple of articles for an upcoming Halloween issue. Not being a writer, I am a real estate broker, so if I can do this, anybody can do this. But I agreed to do that. And after that, they approached me again and said, how about doing an Animatronic article for us on for our other magazine, Servo magazine, which I agreed to do. And started to come up with an idea. I asked, how long do I have to come up with something? And they said, you've got 45 days from today, the day I agreed to do this, with no concept in mind of what I wanted to do yet. I had to have that thing turned in 45 days. So I really wanted something original, something that my followers hadn't seen before, that maybe nobody had seen before. So I came up with the idea to build Papa Voodoo for my graveyard. And Papa Voodoo's a voodoo witch doctor. And in order to put him together and to get him to operate, I had to design an entirely new system, mechanical system to make him work. And then we also had to come up with a way to control him. And we wanted to be able to puppeteer him and then be able to play that back. So we were able to come up with a couple of those systems. That's very much what this guy right over here is doing. The components from Actibotics, and we're going to get into more of this, but we were able to pull that off in 45 days. Had a lot of help, again, people from all over the country. I have a buddy in Canada that did the audio track, a friend in South Carolina did my hat, and some of the other accoutrements, and then Brian Lincoln over in Arizona is the one that came up with the initial puppeteering system that we're going to start to talk about here. So that there is Papa Voodoo in my graveyard. And if you want to see more of this, there's videos on my YouTube channel. Go over there, subscribe, watch the videos. I'm going to refer back and forth to some of the stuff that's notated over there. There's a couple links down below as well. One that goes much more into depth in some of this stuff. So you can go out and check some of that out. But after Papa Voodoo came out, he was pretty successful, made the cover. I started writing a series of articles on animatronics, do-it-yourself animatronics for Servo magazine for 2.5 years. And that eventually turned into my book. So if you haven't seen that yet, The Ultimate Guide to Do-It-Yourself Animatronics, I think I got a copy. And this isn't a push to sell the book, but there's a lot of the stuff that we're going to talk about is also covered in there, as well as, again, on my YouTube channel and on my webpage, so which you can see scrolling along the bottom of the page there. Under the current circumstances, I know we all wish that we were together at a real maker fair that we could speak face to face. But I think we're going to be able to make this work. My buddy Miles is here with us, and he's going to be moderating the chat, watching the chat for questions. So if you have questions, please make sure to put them over there. He'll try and interrupt me at times to interject.
Absolutely, try my best.
I'm going to let him introduce himself, and I'm going to switch cameras and be right back.
Hey guys, again, thanks for coming in, watching Steve's presentation today. Again, if any questions, go ahead and ask them. I'll field what I can, and what I can, of course, I'll try to throw at Steve so we can get you some answers as quick as possible. Also, we will probably be doing a Zoom cast after for a little Q&A.
All right. So with that, Miles, do I have any questions I should have to start out with right away?
Not yet. We're good so far.
We're good so far. Good to be. All right. Now, again, please ask questions if you've got them. I want to make sure that I'm giving you the information that you came to see. Again, we only have an hour. I could talk all day and have on this subject. So, please join us over there at Zoom. We'll post a link afterwards if you want to chat over there so we can see each other and carry on a conversation. You want to share something that you've built. If you see something that I do and then you've got an idea on how I can improve it, I'd love to see you there. So let's get right into it. Let's dive into this. Move over here. And I'm going to move this guy. We're going to talk about him a little bit later. But let's first talk about our original system that we came up with. And if I can do this without him smacking me, get him moving. This was our initial setup using Brian Lincoln's system for puppeteering. And this uses a propeller activity board right over here, which can record the movements of 8 servos. We have to do that recording 4 servos at a time. So for characters such as this, these have got 3. Well, it's got 3 servos in this arm. It's got 3 servos here. It's got something special up there that we're going to talk about in a minute. And it's got another servo down here that's rotating the base. So I break those 4 channels, one arm in the base and then the other arm into the other servo or into the other bank. And so what you do is you start it and you will record it using this. I'll wait till he finishes. This system of potentiometers. Now, this is what we've built. I've tried a couple different ways. I first made it more like a joystick when I originally did it and tried to puppeteer from that, and it was too confusing for me. This is the way Brian recommends doing it. And if you want more information on this whole system, there's a link down below to Brian Lincoln's thread on one of the Christmas forums that goes into great detail about all of this. So, and there is also, I did a Facebook Live, and I believe that link is also down below. We spend over an hour, going through this in much more detail. So, again, what we do to program him is I've got this, and it's got 4 pots. One up here at the top for the shoulder rotation, one right here for shoulder lift, one pot here in the elbow for your elbow, and one final pot here for either if I have a hand that's going to twist, I can do this, or in this case I would use it for an on and off for this other hand to turn on a switch, and we'll talk about that in a second. So you would program one arm, and if you liked it, you would save it, and then you would switch over and program the other arm. So you would turn it on. It would turn the first arm on, and while you were trying to program the second arm so that you can get that all to link up nice and clean together. It's a wonderful system, very robust, but it does take some getting used to, and it is a little more, takes some time to get into it. There is, I think Brian's manual on it is 38 pages, and it's very thorough, but it's very good. Yeah, he does a wonderful job of documenting. Brian, if he hasn't taught me anything, is how to better document all of my work, whether it's code work or whether it's any other thing in programming or just process. If you're not writing things down and using that wonderful tool that we all have, in our pockets to take pictures along the way, you should be doing that. I really recommend and love to see everybody that shares their stuff on whether YouTube or Facebook or Instagram. I love following that and seeing that. So if you're not doing it yet, please do. Please do share it. But it also is a great tool, especially if you're just doing this occasionally. For Halloween, we set up once a year. Being able to go back into your photo album and see how you set something up in one of these more complex props goes a long way in speeding things up. Every time I do something like this, I think, oh, well, I'm going to remember exactly how I did that. Nah, not me. I don't know if I'm getting older or what, but and I'm losing my mind. I'm going to turn that ticker off because it's too distracting. So plus we could see a little more. So first tip: document as you go, especially as you're getting into this. So this character in the mechanical system we came up with Papa Voodoo, and I'm still using in most of my animatronics today. Is these parts are all from Actibotics. Now, you certainly can build a lot of this to save yourself some money, because all the parts do add up over time. You start piling this stuff on, but I have found buying the pre-done pieces saves me not only a ton of time but a ton of aggravation. I can put one of these together in an evening easily after dinner. Before I started using this, I would spend days and days and days in my shop, after I was done working at night, fabricating all of this stuff. Everything lines up, it really works well, really comes together fast. You can design these things in a multitude of different ways. Now, of course, when I started this, I'm going to turn that off so we're not talking over him. When I started this, nobody had done this before. So I spent a lot of time with the techs over at Servo City, just figuring out all the parts and everything to assemble this and get it to do what I wanted it to do. There's a full list in my book, but you don't need to go there. If you're interested in it, shoot me an email or a text, and I'd be happy to give you that original list of components, save you some time. Because I know even with all the stuff that we did trying to get ready on that first order, I think it took me 3 orders or so to get all the parts that I've done. And some of this has changed, of course, over the years. What project doesn't? You look at it and you're not happy with something, you change something. I used to have the body turning, with the servo up here in the chest, and to turn the shoulders. That system didn't work quite as cleanly as I wanted. Now I use a different servo gearbox down here to turn the whole torso, and it works much better and much smoother. I've redesigned the shoulders as well, so that they look more lifelike, instead of having the servo lower down here where that shoulder is not raising from right at this point. So, things have changed a bit, and I hope you continue to improve your props. They're never done. The characters are never done. We're never satisfied with them. I don't know about you, but I've spent a good part of my time here during this shelter in place, working on my props. I work from home, but have had additional time to spend on stuff. I've been working actually on a converted wheelchair that I converted over into a steampunk train. And I think I finally have put the first part of him, the build, to rest. And now I'm going to work on some electronics for him. But and the other thing, I did want to put a quick shout out to all my friends, all the 3D printers out there. I know that there were hundreds, if not thousands of us around the country, around the world, that stopped printing on our 3D printers to print PPE. It was incredible to watch, that community come together and chip in and do their part to try and help, our frontline workers making PPEs. So, and I hope all of you have done what you could do to help with the current situation. Especially, tempers are a little short at times here, and we're all anxious to get back to our real lives, and the way things seem to be progressing, maybe that is sooner than later. But anyway, So Servo City Actibotics, for the power part of it, again, this is primarily today what we're going to talk about is servos. Servos is what I use in my animated characters primarily. If you're interested in more in motors and pneumatics, I love both of them and I use them a ton, but we're not going to talk about them really today. But again, there are 2 links down below on a couple videos I did, one on motorized props and one on pneumatics props, how to get started, some of the things you can use. So if that's, you're also interested in that after we're done here, you know, you can go click on those and again, subscribe to the channel while you're there. So, so we're using servos and you may not recognize these, or if you're, in fact, maybe you don't even know what a servo is. So, real quickly, you know, this is a basic servo. This is a standard size servo. You can get them in smaller sizes. You can get them in larger sizes. But for what I use primarily, it's this size. The only one that's different is this one down here in the body movement is a little larger servo, but again, in a servo gearbox. Now, this servo, 425. These are the ones we've used for years and years of high-tech. I'm a big fan of high tech. I'm also a big fan of picking a system and sticking with it instead of trying to match and mix and match, whether it's you know, whether you're metric or inch, or if you're doing 12 volt or 110 volt for your electrical power, you know, or you're picking a brand of servo. You know, I started with high tech, have been very happy with it. And so that's my servo of choice, and that's what I stick with. But these were the ones we started with many years ago, 425s. Most of our 3-axis skulls, we're going to talk about them in a bit, use 425s. And these have 48 ounce-inches of torque. And you don't even need to know what all that is. But just know that's what we did for a 3-axis skull, 48. Remember 50, okay? In comparison, the servo gearboxes with these big gears on them can greatly increase the amount of torque, the amount of power you can get out of a servo. This little servo all by itself is not going to raise this arm up. It just doesn't have the power to do that. This one is one of their new servos geared up to 7-to-1. And I think at that rating, it gets 3,300 ounce-inches. Versus 50 ounce-inches in a standard one. So you can see that you are going to get a lot better performance out of these. Now, if you're looking to starting to get into servos, you're going to find a myriad of different choices. There's a great chart on Servo City's site for both Futaba servos and high tech, you know, with a comparison all on one page. That's fantastic. I refer to it all the time, but you know, you can compare them right across, but you know, this servo here is $15, something like that, around that, $12 to $15. This top of the line, super high torque geared servo box is $200. So, you know, you get what you pay for, especially in servos. There are no shortcuts. This is one place I don't skimp. I don't use cheap knockoffs in my servos. You may save some money up front, but in the end, it's going to cost you time. It's going to cost you money. You're going to have breakdowns, you know, when they're the absolute least convenient. So buy quality. Now, you don't have to buy all of them for this one. Again, this particular one, and this is how I usually design, at least with 3 servos in each arm, 2 at the shoulder and 1 at the elbow. You don't have to buy 3 $200 servo gearboxes. They've got servo gearboxes for around 100 if you assemble them yourself. That'll do just fine for the shoulder rotate and the elbow. Your expensive servo, and again, you don't have to do both arms. You can do just pieces or whatever you choose, whatever your budget will allow you to get started. But if you're going to do this, the best servo that you get and the strongest, highest torque servo you get is this one right here in the shoulder that's going to lift, oh, I got it still turned on, is going to lift this arm up and down. This is the servo that needs to have the most strength. It's got this big lever, all this weight. That's where you spend your money, is on that servo gearbox right there. So that's a quick primer on servos. Oh, one other thing, there is a choice between analog and digital servos. My recommendation is, if you're starting to buy, go with digital. That's the way everything is going. In a few years, we probably won't even be able to get analog servos anymore, or they're going to be rare. So you want to switch over to the digitals from the very beginning. They're a little more expensive, but they've got some great features not available on the analogs that allow you to program your servos, end limits, dead bands. You don't even need to know all of that, but just know the digital servos are better. They're worth the money, and you definitely want to do that. One other thing to look at, if you do want to go and buy some of the analog servos, and again, they have their place. I still use them in 3-axis skulls, and I probably have 20 of them still laying around to be included in projects that I've pulled the old ones out and replaced them with digitals that I'll use someday. But especially the high tech, these gears, servo horns that sit on top of a servo have little teeth in them that fit onto the top gear. A lot of the high tech servos used to have 24 teeth. They are transitioning over to the 25 tooth system that seems to be coming, at least, the industry standard. I know that's what Futaba uses and a lot of the other ones. So if you're buying servos, I recommend that you go and buy the servos with 25 teeth. Don't go with the 24. Again, those are on their way out, and we're not going to be using those for a whole lot longer. For mounting your servos, these little brackets, they're a couple of bucks, are a great way to allow you to attach your servos in a lot of different ways. They've got a lot of different holes on them and allow you to do that. So that's that. Before we go any further in programming, you may be asking, I get a lot of questions about the eyes. This was probably the biggest improvement I made to my props. Again, a lot of my props are Halloween props, so they are out at night, which just magnifies the impact that these things have. But I used to do servo-driven eyes, and they, the servos would drive them side to side and up and down, and you could have blink, and they're very complicated. But that's what we had. I have switched over to using electronic eyes. These eyes are from Adafruit. There's a tutorial on their site, on the Adafruit Learning Center, about how to do these. And these were the original ones, and these were really great. But you bought them as a kit. They use a little teensy microcontroller, which uses the Arduino IDE. And they actually, all the programs written and everything. The only issue was you had to do some pretty fine soldering to get these 8 channel of this ribbon wire soldered into that little eye screen. I had to do that soldering before I had my coffee in the morning. So they were kind of a pain to do. And they were kind of a pain to get attached to the teensy board. Well, we complained, and Adafruit listened, and they came out with the new Monster Mask. And these things, let's see if I can turn this one on. These things are absolutely fantastic. Right out of the package, you plug them in, you attach battery power. This is a board. This is a 3D printed. I printed this on my printer to house the board. But 5 minutes from unpacking it, well, after the battery is charged, you've got an eye kit. This eye kit is also, you can separate it down here in the middle and put a little ribbon cable between the eyes if you need to move this. But this used to be for those of us that could solder fine soldering, and that was about it. You had to be one of my super great friends for me to make one of those sets for you, because I hated it so much. Now anybody can do this. This is so cool. They also have a half glass dome to put on top of it. You glue it on top of them, and it just increases the effect and makes it look even better. So I can't recommend these highly enough. This adds an entirely new level of lifelike movement to your animatronic eyes. This set, the mask from Adafruit, even with a battery, 70 round number, $75, something like that. I see, yeah, Richard and some of you other guys are on chat, I see. So maybe you can chime in with the right amount. But that's certainly a great product. And now it is super easy for anybody to add this to their project. So look those up on Adafruit. Okay, get back to this. Again, this is being controlled by a propeller activity board, and it's controlling the servos. But this can do more than just control servos. You can switch pneumatics on and off, or you can do something. This is something that I've started doing that I just love. We used to do hand mechanisms with 5 servos in the hands, where they would, so that you could get a hand to come down, close on something, hold it, bring it around, set it back down, open, and release. And it was certainly doable. We did that a lot, but it was a real pain. Plus, again, it's taking up 5 more channels. It's another servo that you're using, or not ready yet. Having to use 5 channels, again, 5 channels out of an 8-channel board, $100 board, that's taking up a lot just to be able to make this hand. And it was tough to get this thing to go down and hold on to some objects. But now, this is an electromagnet here, and it is turned on and off to be able to grip that. So it just turns it back off when it's ready to set it down. I just got a big metal washer onto the top, and one of the channels on the propeller activity board turns that electromagnet on and off. Electromagnets are really cool, not just for this. We use them a lot for escape room props and stuff, but that is really a neat way to pick something up and move it around. We've used them for guillotines, for dropping the fake blade down. It comes back up, the magnet holds it on. When you're ready, you turn the magnet off and it lets it go. Those are pretty neat to be able to use an electromagnet. So if you've never used those, if you see my stuff, I love using magnets. Again, that head sticks up on there with a magnet. A lot of the things that I put together on my new steampunk train utilize magnets as well for easily changing things out and adjusting things on the fly. So the new neodymium magnets are really great. So, Miles, questions?
Just one question. They're questioning the body framing, and where that's from.
Again, that's all from Actibotics from Servo City. All this framing, all the connector pieces, and everything is machined. Every screw lines up. Again, it goes together in a couple of hours, and that most of that's sorting screws. But all of these pieces come from Servo City on their Actibotics line. And we're going to talk about another product that they also have on the other character. But one other thing I also wanted to talk about is using linear actuators. This will also do the servo actuators. And I like using these a lot, when I need linear motion. One thing with linear actuators, for most of them, though, is they're slow. But again, for me, whether it's the servo or the linear actuator, I am usually after smooth action. And so I don't need a lot of speed. I want torque. I want power. So, this linear actuator, this is always the hardest and most overtaxed servo in a 3-axis skull is the nod servo that is controlling this, because you get that head down with all that weight, and you've got to have that servo to pull back up. So this arrangement I use when I'm putting a mask on a prop. I do this, and I'll build it up with foam front and back to be able to support that mask, instead of using a skull with a standard 3-axis, and we'll talk about that in a second. On the servos, again, if you're looking to get into the gearboxes, they come in a variety of different gearing ratios. Think 2-to-1, 3-to-1, 5-to-1, 7-to-1. I almost always use either 5-to-1 or 7-to-1. You sacrifice speed whenever you increase torque, but I prefer, again, I want as much power, twice as much power as I think I need, because I'm always going to use it, seems like. But I would much rather have torque than speed. If I want something to go really fast, I'm probably going to be using pneumatics for it. So that is that. Ken, I can sneak in. I don't see many of the chat questions, but I see this one, so I'll answer it. And Ken asked, when do you plan? Do you do a lot of preliminary sketching out of your idea? Evidently, you have not seen my drawing. It's about as bad as my singing, but I do some. I've done this enough that a lot of times, I'll have a pile of parts and I'll kind of work it through. But I do just minimal amount of sketching, mainly so that I can get a parts list put together, enough to get a parts list put together, and then I go from there. I'm just going to make parts. I'll make a quick comment on parts before Miles makes me move on. Whenever I'm ordering stuff, I like to order extras. If you could see the rest of this is my workroom. There are bins and organized bins all around with parts, so that when I do have an idea, I at least have enough parts on hand that I can kind of cobble something together, and then I'll add to it and sketch it out. When I do most of my sketching is when I'm at conventions, and I travel all around the country doing presentations, primarily for the Halloween conventions, but Doctor Who and steampunk conventions as well. But that's when I do most of my sketching, is when I see an idea. I try not to copy other people's ideas, but that's where I get a lot of my inspiration. So in my backpack, I've always got a sketch pad, and I'll either do it, as soon as I leave somebody's booth. I don't like to do it in front of their booth, but try and take a picture and then try and make some sketches, and then usually that night in the hotel room, is when I'm jotting down my ideas. So that's that. Any questions? Anything else I missed, Miles? While I get setups here?
Nope, we're good to go. Let's continue.
Guys, you got to ask questions, because I know I don't want you to leave and not get your questions answered. I want to make sure that I'm covering what you want. Now we talked about Brian's system, and it's a wonderful system, and it's the one I still use for a lot of my stuff, and I will continue to use. It's very robust. It allows me to do a lot of things. But while I'm working on my next book, and I wanted to put some stuff together for the new book on soldering. And so I decided that I wanted to have a project. I build a project for every chapter I write, for everything I write about. I'd like to have built it, not just read about it somewhere. So that's kind of why it takes me a little longer to write, maybe, than some of the other people. So I decided that the readers of the book would have the same opportunity, and they'd get to build a project. Now, I just didn't want. There's a lot of kits out there. So you could build something. You could build a little light and flashy thing and stuff.
25 minutes.
Okay, and those are cool, but I wanted something that you could build and then actually use, as a prop builder. So my idea was I wanted to make a little RC controller of some kind that you could live puppeteer your props with, your servo props, and if you wanted to, you could run, RC controlled. I do quite a bit of RC stuff. I think I got 4 controllers sitting up here, from various manufacturers that I love, and I use them all. but I thought I'd build something like that, and you know, you could run. I have, like I said, big spider that I run up and down the street on Halloween, and with RC. The new train is RC controlled, and if you've seen my Jarvis steampunk robot, you know, he actually requires 2 RC controllers that I have in front of me on a shelf, and to operate all of his controls. So that worked really good. So I thought that's what we'd do. Well, I couldn't find anybody online that was putting together a kit like I liked, that either the code didn't work the way it was supposed to, or their parts list for the code or for the project included parts no longer available, or they were wrong parts, or they were missing part numbers. So I started to design my own. And when I happened to go to a makerspace or Maker Faire meeting here in San Diego, I met up with a local electronics firm, Attacor, who is, again, they're here local to me in San Diego. I can drive over there and buy parts if I need them. And we really hit it off. And I had mentioned that this is, you know, I was looking to design something. And Alex from Attacor came up to me after the presentation and said, boy, you know, we do kits, you know, maybe we could collaborate on something. And I love to collaborate. You know, these projects, you know, take a lot of different talent. And, you know, if you think that, you know, some of these things are all done by one person, I've had the great opportunity to visit some of the Hollywood props factories, Legacy Effects, Garner Holt, others. You know, they have entire teams that work on the Terminator or Avatar, or, you know, the dinosaurs, you know, molders and sculptors and mechanics and hair punchers, and, you know, list goes on and on. So I'm a big fan of collaborating. And I said, yeah, that would be good. I'm not interested in making any money on this. All I want is a product that I could put, you know, in my book, where somebody can just go order from somebody that's reputable, that's going to ship it quick, that's going to have the parts, and that they can assemble. You know, if they want to talk to somebody about a problem they're having, they can reach somebody that's going to respond. And I was really impressed with the folks over at Attacor. So I said, yeah, I would love to do that. And the project over the last 3 or 4 months that we've been working on this has morphed. Every time I went to Alex and said, you know, we include onto the controller this feature? He would think for a minute and go, yeah, I think we could do that. He hasn't told me no yet. And I see either he or Andre is on here making a comment. They haven't told me no yet. So I told them, until they tell me no, I'm going to keep asking for things. But what we have come up with is a controller that many people will recognize, so much less intimidating than this. You know, this looks like a game controller, which is the design we wanted. It incorporates some things I want. Joysticks, like we all know. I wanted some slide switches for controlling my animatronics, because there's a lot of things I feel more comfortable with the slide switch versus a joystick, and a variety of different digital analog or digital pins. What sets us apart, all these controllers will control servos, and that's great. The original kit that we put up and that's available out on Attacor's website right now mimics most of the other RC controllers. The kit, I think, is $57. And again, it's a kit that we expect you to solder up. However, if you don't want to solder it up and you would like somebody else to do it, they'll do it for you for $20, which I think is a steal. I think, and I wanted to mention, if you want to save money on these servo gearboxes, they come as unassembled or assembled for an additional $30. So if you're building a character like this with 7 of these servo gearboxes, if you do the soldering yourself, that saves you over $200. It's not that big of a job to do that. That Facebook Live I talked about, that's mentioned or commented in the comments, kind of goes through the basic system. They wrote a good tutorial on it. That's a great way to save some money on the servo gearboxes. Just do the modification yourself. But But anyway, so you can get it assembled, unassembled, and you can control servos. Great, you know, that's an RC controller. However, in its current configuration, you can use the switches on top to live puppeteer 4 different props. So you can program 4 different receiver boards in separate props, and just by changing the positions of the toggle switches, you can control and live puppeteer 4 different ones in your display, whether it's Halloween or whatever it is. You can live puppeteer. That's something the others don't have. That's cool, but that's not what we really were after. What really sets this board apart is, let's make sure he doesn't smack him in the head. Whoops. Let me switch electrical cords. Is this now will record your animation and play it back. So as long as you didn't pull your power cord out. So you can use the RC controller to puppeteer to puppeteer him, to use it. You can do this live just like you can for everything. And you can puppeteer a routine into him.
If you could raise your RC controller so people can see what you're doing.
So I'm just using the joysticks and the slides to move them around. You can record that, and then once you get the program done the way you want it, you can turn this off, put this away, and this is now a standalone prop controller with that program on it. $25 for one of these, and it will then replay. This is a different program that I just was playing with, but it will then replay that. So every one of my servo props is getting moved over to this controller just because it is so much simpler to program the movements in. Sorry about that. It is so much simpler to program the movements in with this controller. And for $25, you know, I've got my controller. Now, this is first generation. This is the first beta version. Our beta testers, and I think a couple of them are here today, are on. Went through, did their testing, made their suggestions. And the second generation, the production version, is actually at the fabricators as we speak. The bare boards, PCBs, should be back to us hopefully by the end of next week, possibly. So within 2 to 3 weeks, these boards are going to be out on the site for purchase. Again, 8 or 6. We're running 6 servo pins now. We hope to expand that to all 8, and 8 digital outputs as well, to be able to record your routines for your characters, and then trigger them, whether it's, whether you use some wireless. I've got a wireless relay hooked up to them. You can use a push button. You can use a PIR, passive infrared sensor, which is my favorite. If you don't know what, we're using one similar to this. These are not motion sensors. These are passive infrared sensors, so they work at night. For those of you that buy Halloween props from the big Halloween stores, and they work great in the dark or in the Halloween store with the lights on, and you take them and you set them out on your yard on Halloween, and once it gets dark, they don't work. They don't work because they have motion sensors in them. Motion sensors can't see in the dark. I don't know why they have not upgraded. These are so cheap now, but this is what we use, passive infrared. That's what most of my haunt is. And again, my haunt, when it's fully assembled, is running about 50 or so animatronics in the haunt. Again, combination of motors, pneumatics. 20 or so of those are pneumatic props. I have 2 big compressors on either side of my yard, and then a ton of servo props, all the way down from a snake with a single servo mechanism. See if I even have it. A single servo mechanism making its head move back and forth up to these animated characters. And I've got a variety of those out there. And like I said, the new train I just finished will be out on Halloween, if we have Halloween this year. That is the RC controlled steampunk train. That's the wheelchair platform underneath. And sitting in the cab is Jarvis. Jarvis is my steampunk robot. Again, he travels with me to some shows. If you were here right when we started, he was with me at Maker Faire here in San Diego, the last one we were able to do live. And he's the one that's controlled by 2 RC controllers. He's got movable arms plus the track, 3-axis movement in the head, a camera that's on a gimbal, audio speakers so I can speak to him with a mic wirelessly. So so that is again another example of how I'm using RC control. A couple examples how I'm using RC control to manipulate my props. You know, a lot of this it's super nice if you've got somebody to be able to live puppeteer, you know, one of your props. It's so they can totally, completely interact with somebody that's in front of them. And so just the live puppeteering is great. But again, I think the real game changer has come by allowing us to record our routines onto the board and then totally take this away and use this as a standalone. So again, you only have to buy this one time, and then you can use it to record all of your props, which makes it really great if you're introducing this into a STEM class or something. You just buy a couple of the controllers for the recording, buy everybody one of the recorder boards for their individual props, and they just share the recorder when they need it, when it's time to go and record their routines. So this is great, but again, you only need to buy this one time, and then just buy this. This is already assembled, so again, if you don't like to solder, you buy this and have them solder it. This comes fully assembled. It's all the routines are stored on an SD card, so if you have multiple routines, you can just pull the mini SD card out, put another one on there, document what that one is, and record another routine on here, and go to the next one. So backup. I highly recommend that. Vanna, who was the original one I showed you, the Actobotics, I took her to St. Louis last year. Last year, Miles, nod your head up and down if it was last year or year before. I think it was last year. And I stay with Miles when I'm there. We spend the whole night before assembling props, preparing for my presentations. The last one we put together, because I know she always works, is Vanna. Put her together, she didn't work. Somehow in transit, and I don't know with the gentle baggage handlers that we have at our airports how this happened, but the little micro SD card sticks out of my board there a tiny bit. It got cracked. So, and I didn't have a backup. Now there's a backup in there. There's a backup on the cloud. There's a backup on my home computers. So backup everything. Again, document. Every time I think of this, Brian Lincoln's in my head reminding me that to document your code. You're going to forget what it is. So I'm running down to the last couple minutes. I wanted to add a couple other things. I always get the question, are there any specialty tools that you use? And for most of this assembly, this setup here, well, by the way, is the new one is Servo City's Go Build a Line. This is metric, mainly for the robotics competitions and stuff. It meets their specifications. It's in metric. So unfortunately, I have to have 2 sets of tools and 2 sets of parts. They've got some neat things. Let me turn them off so I can turn them. Wire management's always an issue. but the new Go Build, again, you can see this frame's bigger than the other, but that allows them to put a pass through here for your wiring, which keeps it out of the way. I love that. Wire management's huge. But I wanted to go over a couple of things. Again, building the mechanism is probably the easiest part. The next part that most people have the most problems with is then programming it in some way with some kind of a controller to get it to do what you want. And I think we've done a pretty good job coming up with a couple different systems that will meet just about everybody's needs. Again, to pretty realistically, the propeller activity board runs about $89, I think. And if you're only building one prop, that's about the same thing as what you're going to spend, on this system. This and a receiver board is going to run you about the same. If you're going to run multiple props and they're not overly complicated, this one, every extra one's just $25. My witches scene from my site, again, you can go look at that on my web or on my YouTube channel, uses 4 propeller boards and 2 DMX lighting controllers to run that. So, the electronics on that one added up a bit. But so once you get this built, and this is, this part is my favorite, but then you get the electronics to work it, you're still not done. You still have to dress it. And one of the big problems is trying to make this look right, make the proportions look right and not have squared off shoulders. And I've tried everything, wire and aluminum brackets and everything, and trying to get the chest to look right. And by researching what is done by other affiliate, likewise hobbies, I borrow a lot of their techniques. I'm an Ironman triathlete, and so I really wanted to build an Ironman suit. And so I was looking for methods to do that, and was thinking about 3D printing and started to look at the cosplay stuff and decided that, hey, if that makes a good cosplay costume using foam, I could certainly use it for body forms. I mean, we were ready to start casting fiberglass forms, which is what how Disney used to do it. I'm not sure if they're still doing it, but that's rigid. So if one of your servos crashes, you crack that, you can damage something. I wanted something soft. And so I came up with using this foam, and this is foam mat. The ones I like, these are from Walmart. These are in the sporting goods department. Or you can use, a lot of people use the floor mats from Harbor Freight. That you stand on, you put in front of your tool bench and your washing machine, whatever it is, wherever you spend a lot of time standing. And then you cut out patterns and you glue it together with contact cement. Now this pattern, the ones I use, I got from Evil Ted, who does a lot of cosplay stuff. Great site to go check out. I did a video on this as well on my YouTube channel about how to go about this. But the greatest thing about this, I've got quite a bit of female characters in my haunt, and I never could get a female chest, but to look correct. The beauty of the foam is you can now do that. I mean, he's got female body forms. So now my female characters actually look the way they should. This goes on one of my witches, actually. This really helps take your creature, your character, whatever you're building, to the next level. Is then, once you've got the mechanism working right, you still have to dress it. You have to make it look right. You have to have the understructure for your costume or your clothing to go on as well. So there's that. A couple specialty tools. Again, I always get this question. And for me, being in a hobby, I'm a big tool guy. I love tools. This is the first tool I would buy. This wire stripper. These are super cheap. They're on Amazon. They're like under $15. And instead of grabbing your wire and pulling on it to take the sheathing off, this grabs hold of the wire, strips it without ever putting stress on there. So one of the first things I would buy is one of these if you don't have one of this style of wire cutter. The other thing that you're really going to need is a multimeter. And again, these can look complex, but you don't need to use all the features. But you do want one that can test continuity. $20 or something for this one's a Craftsman one. But you want to be able to check voltage and continuity, especially if your props unexpectedly go down. At least half of the time that the problem is in power. So having a multimeter to go in and check. In fact, as I was preparing for this today, my switch on my electromagnet wouldn't work and couldn't figure it out. Just playing around with it, got my multimeter, went in, found out one of my connectors was bad. And so, what could have turned into a long extended period, a couple minutes, and I had it fixed. Get a multimeter. A couple other things, if you're going to be doing this, you're going to be, these are all hex screws. And everybody's got a hex set, in their box, I'm sure, like one of these. These will do the job, but I really recommend getting ball end joint ones. They come in both inch and in metric, and since I have both, I need both. But these are really a time saver, really, relieve the frustration on getting in, especially on some of these where you may have to get in at an angle. These will work at an angle, so really recommend these. You have a lot of wiring to do in extensions. You can buy extensions. I like making my own. And there's a lot of videos on YouTube to do that. And I think there's one on Servo City. But having the right crimping pliers and getting a pair, if you're doing these things, get a ratcheting pair, not one that, that you just squeeze, but one that actually, when you let it go, locks in place. A ratcheting one for making your wires is again, a game changer, will greatly ease that whole process of doing those cabling. And one last thing, one little tool. We do a lot of things with piano wire for making things and attaching them to servos. And you're constantly taking pliers and trying to make that little L. Instead, you put the wire in, you squeeze it, and let's see, and it makes that. If I put it in front of my hand, that. So I love these little Z-bend pliers too. So again, if you're a gearhead junkie, you might want one of those. So I think we're running about out of our limit. I think Miles is going to go ahead and post. He posted links to a lot of the things we were just talking about. But we're going to go ahead and do a Zoom meeting right after this. Miles is going to post a link, I think. Nod, Miles. Yes, he's working on it as we speak. So if you want to come join us over there, please do that. Again, if you've got any questions, if there was something I didn't cover that you'd like me to see me cover, there's something you want in the next book, whatever, please shoot me a line. Again, I'll stick up my website here again. That's the website. Come over there, visit the YouTube channel. There's 150 videos over there. Most of those are tutorials about how to build this stuff. So, a lot of information there we'd love to share with you. And so go check that out as well. So if that's it, I think my time is up. I'll look up Miles' link here as well so that I can go over and join you. Is it in there, Miles? Oh. Oh, Miles, you muted yourself. I can't unmute you. So anyway, please come over to the Zoom meeting, join in, chat, share some of your stuff, ask any questions. I'm willing to stick around over there for a while to make sure that you've got what you want. Miles, did you post that Zoom link?
Working on it. It's coming here shortly.
Okay. All right. Well, I can gab for a few more minutes until they kick me out of here. Any questions, guys, that I can answer really quick while I'm waiting for Miles to get that up? Again, if you're interested in that original puppeteering system that Brian Lincoln put together, he has shared that. That's all open source. He's got a thread on the Christmas forum. That link is down below. So you can go over there. You may have to join as a member to see pictures. I'm not sure over there on that Christmas forum, but if so, they're a bunch of really nice guys. You know, they're Christmas guys. But there's that. If you're interested in the controllers, like I said, you can pick these up now. They've got them on site. They have those. You can get the controllers and the receiver boards. The new receiver boards in the next 2 to 3 weeks will also be on the site. And if you're interested in one of my books, Amazon is sold out as of yesterday. Bad timing. But Adacore actually has these, and Adacore offers them for free shipping. So actually, that's the best price, best way to get it anyway. But they only have 4 copies in stock last time I checked this morning. So I don't know how long those will last. Amazon should have these in stock again in about 10 days. We have a new run, my publisher says, and that's when they should be restocked. So, all right, Miles, to you.
Still working on it, coming up.
All right. Oh, okay. I'll do something else while you're still talking. Another free tip for those that have stuck around and didn't leave early. Again, back to the document. You know, again, Brian has burned this into my skull. Document. One thing that I do is mark a lot of my power connections. A lot of times we're working with 6 volts, 5 volts, 6 volts, 7.5, 12 volts. And just like in this character right here, this is running off 6 volts. In fact, it's running off 2 6-volt power supplies, one for the board and the digital pins, and one for the servos. So the servo one I'm running on a 6-volt 10 amp. But again, I am getting old, even with glasses on. That is hard for me to read in the dark. So I go and put with silver Sharpie in big print, you know, what my voltage is on my power supply, so I can quickly change them out if I have a bad one. But also on my inputs, I also write, and I know it's kind of hard to tell, on here what voltage I want, so that I don't accidentally plug a 12-volt power supply into my 6-volt board and blow something out. So again, document silver Sharpies. Silver Sharpies are the greatest. And my last tip, final tip for those that have stuck around, if you're like me and you spend half of the time that you're supposed to be building looking for the tool you just set down and can't find, you need one of these. Wearing a tool pouch with the basic tools, and I know mine gets pretty loaded up. This saves me more time and aggravation, and time spent looking for tools is getting a tool pouch and wearing this. So final thing, buy one of these. They're cheap, 15, 20 bucks. Loaded up with the most often used tools, carried around with you when you're prop building, you'll get more done. So I think Miles got that posted. Did I see it go by? Somebody tell me yes or no. He did. Miles is still working on the link. So I guess I have to just keep talking, which is just fine. Anybody got any questions until Miles gets that link? Yeah, mine gets heavy after a while. For those of you that are avid Adam Savage fans, and if you're a Maker Faire person, you probably are, Adam prefers wearing an apron to wearing a pouch. I like the pouch because, you know, this is on with Velcro, and I just stick it on my belt. But again, I hate spending time looking for tools. So I've got both this shop, I've got my office where my primary computer is, my garage where I do a lot of my fabrication, and a lot of my assembly is done out of my patio, especially in, being in Southern California under the fans. I'm working on big projects out there. So a lot of opportunity for me to set down a tool and not remember where it was. So a big thing. I do not use a torque wrench for anything on my animatronics that I can think of. I don't over tighten, try not to snug, but not over tight, because a lot of these little screws, and you're working with, you know, 6/32, 440 screws, you know, it's easy to strip out a head or strip out threads. So I don't, but it probably wouldn't be a bad idea, especially if you're just getting started. So Miles looks like he's got us a Zoom meeting address. So I'm going to close out here, and I am going to go over there. So thank you very much for joining us, and make sure to enjoy the rest of the presentations that are being offered here for Virtual Maker Faire today. And I just have one final request. That is, go out and put an idea down for a build right now. Write something down so you can start building, and then share it with the rest of us so we can all enjoy it. With that, thank you very much. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye. Okay. Miles, can we copy that? Guys, if you're still with me and you're trying to copy that link and you can't copy it, Miles will put it over on my DIY Animatronics Facebook page and put that link over there. Right, Miles? He's already gone, but or maybe you guys can get to it and I can't as a moderator.